Hi everyone, today we're going to be exploring the continent of South America. Our lesson objectives for today will be very similar to those we've already seen. We're going to be using maps and globes to analyze and interpret the geography of South America. We'll locate major countries as well as major landforms and water systems. We'll explain the climate, natural resources, and natural hazards in South America, and also describe the physical geography. The two vocabulary terms for this lesson will be llano, or also pronounced as llano. It's a treeless, grassy plain. It's a region in South America, as well as pampas. The pampas is a grasslands of South America, and we'll talk about both of these regions as we get into this lesson. There are 13 countries of South America. We have Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana, Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and that is the 13 countries of South America. We'll be talking briefly about each one, but I want to go into more of the overarching ideas of South America and kind of spend a little bit of time in the different regions as far as landforms of South America. One of the things I find interesting about South America is the sheer size of the countries. When you look at the map of South America, you might not realize that a country like Colombia here is about twice the size of Texas. Now we're going to start with Colombia because if you were to walk across the land bridge that is Central America, once you were in South America, you would land in the country of Colombia. Colombia has the Andes Mountains running through it, and the natural hazards include droughts and earthquakes, along with volcanic eruptions in the Central Highlands. This western side of South America in the Andes Mountains area is going to be rife with volcanic activity. Colombia's neighbor to the east is Venezuela. Venezuela is twice the size of California. Its climate, similar to Colombia, is tropical and it's cooler in the highlands. These highlands are also known as the Guyana Highlands, and that region, the Guyana Highlands, is home to the world's largest waterfall known as Angel Falls. Next we have the country of Guyana. It's a little smaller than Idaho. Its major physical features are its savannas, and the climate here is tropical with cooling trade winds. Flash floods are a common occurrence during its 2 rainy seasons. Suriname is up next. It's in between Guyana and French Guiana. Suriname is mostly tropical rainforests, and surprisingly enough, this small country is not troubled by any major natural hazards. Never really heard of that before, but they put it in writing, folks. Suriname does not have natural hazards. Suriname is just a little bit larger than the state of Georgia. Even though it looks kind of tiny in relationship to the other countries, Suriname is about the size of our state. The French Guiana is mostly unsettled wilderness. It's a little bit smaller than the state of Indiana, and its central region has hills and mountains, but there are low plains along the coast. It has a tropical climate year-round, but severe thunderstorms in the area result in flooding. Next up, we have the mammoth that is Brazil. Brazil is approximately the size of our country, the United States. So it is the largest country in South America, as you can tell from the map. All the countries of South America border Brazil with the exception of Chile and Ecuador. The terrain and the climate of Brazil is very diverse. The Amazon basin lies in the north and the west, so in this area here, In the southeast are highland areas, and plateaus and coastal plains are also a part of the Brazilian landscape. The climate, again, very diverse. It's mostly tropical, but it's more temperate in the south, getting further away from the equator. Droughts are a frequent problem in the northeast, and the southern area is threatened by flooding and frost. Bolivia is a little less than 3 times the size of Montana. It's important to note that Bolivia and Paraguay are the 2 landlocked nations in South America. Bolivia is also home to part of the Andes Mountains and the plains of the Amazon basin. Lake Titicaca is actually the highest navigable lake, and it's shared by Bolivia and Peru. Elevation affects climate. As we know, the higher up you go, the cooler it gets. The northeast region is subject to flooding. Peru is a very interesting country. There's a lot of diversity geographically in Peru. It's a little smaller than Alaska. We've got the Andes Mountains that run through the center of the country. To the west, we have coastline, and to the east, we have lowland jungle because it's very close to it's basically in the Amazon basin. Peru's climate is just as diverse. It ranges from temperate to extremely cold in the Andes, and then there's the dry western part and the tropical climate in the east. Natural hazards here include flooding, landslides, earthquakes, tsunamis, and mild volcanic eruptions. Ecuador, when I think of Ecuador, I think of the equator, and that is fitting because the equator does run right through the country of Ecuador. It's a little bit smaller than Nevada, and its landscape is characterized by the Andean Central Highlands, coastal plains, and then the jungle in the east. Its climate is tropical along the coast, and in the Amazon jungle, it's also tropical, but it's cooler in the highlands. Ecuador's natural hazards include droughts, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, landslides, and floods, very similar to its neighbor, Peru. Ecuador is also home to the world's highest active volcano. Next up, we have Chile. Chile is kind of shaped like a chile pepper. It is this long, skinny, thin country that it occupies the western side of the continent of South America. It's a little less than twice the size of Montana, and the Atacama Desert, which is the world's driest desert, lies in the northern part of Chile. The Andes Mountains run along the coast of Chile, and the central portion is a fertile valley. The Chilean climate is temperate, and it's cool in the south, desert in the north, and Mediterranean in the center. Chile's natural hazards include earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. And it's important to note that Chile's geographic location places it close to trading routes for both the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. Next we have Argentina. Argentina is the second largest country of South America. It's located right here. It's 3/10 as large as the United States. It's about 30% of the United States. The Andes Mountains run along its western border, and the plateau of Patagonia is in the south. We'll learn about Patagonia in the next video. Pampas covers its northern region in Argentina. Although Argentina's climate is mainly temperate, it's extremely cold in the southeast and dry in the southwest. So the reason why it's getting cold is because we're getting closer and closer to the Arctic and farther away from the equator. Like its western neighbor Chile, Argentina is well positioned near the Atlantic and Pacific trade routes. and it is home to a place called Laguna del Carbon, which is the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere. Now we have Paraguay, also pronounced Paraguay. It is the other landlocked country of South America. So again, you'll see this again on an assessment. Bolivia and Paraguay are the two landlocked nations in South America. Paraguay is a little smaller than the state of California, and it has the Paraguay River running through it. East of this river lies forested hills and grassy plains. West are marshy plains. Scrub and dry forest cover the rest of the country. The climate of Paraguay ranges from tropical to subtropical. The eastern portion receives heavy rainfall, and the west is semi-arid, so not much at all. Natural hazards include flooding, and most of Paraguay's population is concentrated in the southern region here. Last, we have the country of Uruguay, or Uruguay. It's almost as large as the state of Washington, and grasslands cover 3/4 of the country. The landscape consists mainly of fertile coastal lowlands, plains, and low hills. Uruguay benefits from a warm temperate climate, but it doesn't have mountains. Mountains are usually a natural barrier for extreme weather conditions, and for this reason, Uruguay is often subject to high winds. Guys, this is an introduction to the countries of South America. As you can tell, there's a lot to cover. We're going to break this into 2 separate videos. So the next videos will, actually there'll just be one. The next video will cover the landforms, water systems, and we'll get a little bit more into the natural resources of this area. I would suggest starting with the second video and then reinforcing your knowledge of these countries with this first video. So I will post them like that in your module. I would watch the overarching themes of the second video first, and then go into the countries when you have time, as time permits.